We're going to start out with thank you, everybody, for being here and taking the time out of your
Jill says she'll be right back. Rami, we should pretend that you said something like truly explosive while she was gone and just be like, I just can't believe you took it that far. The brigade program is not ready for it.
Totally. Yep. That's too cutting edge for us. Absolutely not ready.
Sorry about that. Is it back?
It is.
Excellent. I don't know what's going on. Okay, so sorry about that. Minor technical difficulties.
We just can't see you.
So I'm going to do a quick, have you guys start a quick round of intros. If you want to start, just tell us your name, what brigade you're with. Tell us what your favorite smell is. Elena, go first.
Hi, everybody. You said favorite smell?
Smell?
You did. Great. My name is Alina Rubalak. I am representing from Open Oakland, and my favorite smell is by far freshly cut grass.
Awesome. So, Brendan, you're next.
Hi, my name is Brendan Babb. I'm the co-captain of Code for Anchorage, and I like the smell of vanilla, fresh vanilla.
Nice. Rami.
Hi, I'm Rami. I'm from Open Oakland. My favorite smell, I don't know even how to say it in real life. It's petrichor. It's a smell of like wet earth and concrete after the rain. It's a series of chemical reactions that cause that beautiful smell that you won't get anywhere else.
And Neil.
I'm Neil. I'm a longtime Open Oaklander. Smell. Night jasmine comes to mind. The smell of night jasmine.
Cool. And so tonight, Erie's going to be our timekeeper. You'll have 2 minutes for each response. And she's going to hold up the yellow card when you have 15 seconds left, and the red card when your time is up. Sound good? Awesome. Okay, so we're going to start out with the preset questions that Luigi sent you guys earlier. And the first question is, what is your top priority for NAC? And let's see, Brendan, you're first.
I think the NAC's doing a great job of getting brigades to collaborate together and sharing knowledge. I would say the top priority is I'm just really interested in some of the BATs in terms of getting projects across multiple brigades and pursuing that and using some of the more recent data we have of where brigades are, what work cities are, and then Sunlight Foundation's open data census. I think combining those, you can kind of see what projects might be an easier lift in some cities and see if there's a champion in those cities and see if it interests those brigades. So collaboration.
Cool. So Elena, you're next. You're muted.
Fixed. Okay. Sorry about that. So top priorities for NAC. I think just keep doing the great work that's been going on so far by the NAC this past year. I think it's important that NAC takes a role in helping brigades with the heavy lifting of running their organization so they can concentrate their energies on project work and advance those. And that may be through helping define process and best practices, assisting with code of conduct, bylaw writing, acquiring resources, aiding with funds. That can come from mentoring newer brigade members or longer time leadership, and just promoting new membership and retention in the brigades. I think it's just really important that brigades know their own pain point, and they know what they need help with. So we need to make those contact points and really derive those answers and give the people the assistance that they need, which in some cases I think might be unique per brigade.
Cool, thanks. Rami, you're next.
Okay, so one of the biggest things I think is to provide that infrastructure. Like Alina said, I think it's super important, and it's already been started. I think one of those, what the infrastructure would do is provide sort of these informal connections to happen much more easily and frequently. And so I think I wrote in my statement, the fact that the cross-brigade collaboration should be the status quo. So it's not even a question that this is going to be the next step for brigades and their maturity. And so what that would also mean is for the NAC to really hunker down and to be like the communications hub between CFA and the local brigades to make that happen. And there's so much more work we could do on the ground.
Awesome. Neil, you're last.
The things that I think are critical to continue and to kind of augment are this kind of sense that brigade leaderships and members just feel heard and seen. I think there's been multiple conversations that identify kind of the gap in between in communication and knowledge that has existed, and in some cases more, with some brigades more than others. So I think, as many of us have underlined, I think it's conversations that need to surface, identifying and closing the gaps between brigades, Code for America. I'm also super interested in also identifying and closing gaps and building relationships with all of our, what I call tech for good allies. That's what comes to mind for me right now.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to move on to the second question. And it is, what's a learning from your local brigade that you want to apply on a national level? And Elena.
Okay, so learnings that have happened in our local brigade, I have two that I want to talk about. One is that Open Oakland moved from the more traditional captain to a steering committee leadership model, and that's been it was initiated about 2 years ago, and we really sort of did this ad hoc. This involved a lot of first-time attempts on our part, and I think that everyone on my team would be very happy to share a lot of our lessons learned for any other brigades that are attempting to do this now. Additionally, Open Oakland has an active and enthusiastic relationship with our civic bureaucrats. I know this really differs between brigades, but I know that firsthand that this partnership with our civic partners has been a key to several project successes within our brigade. So I'd love to talk to other brigades about finding the right partners in their civic spaces and strengthening those relationships. I think that's a big one.
Cool. To stay in Oakland, Neil.
Hi. So I picked some very similar top opportunities and outcomes that Open Oakland had engaged into what just Alina just said. So I'm just going to add kind of my voice to it and just underline the importance. But I think we did go through an extraordinary kind of process to really rebuild the governance after our kind of former captains left us. So I think the effort and skill set of bringing everybody together and basically co-creating together what our governance was going to look like, I think was just a really wonderful, for me, skills building, community building opportunity that not only attracted a lot of the core folks from Open Oakland, but also actually attracted people from our wider community. So I just felt it just made a very, very rich conversation. So, I mean, I think that on a national level, I think we played that out a little bit with NAC this year. Brigade action teams kind of reflected some of that team building. So something like that, where we all come together, throw, you know, the clay on the board and just shape things and work things out together based on what our needs are and where we think, you know, what we think they need based on what we hear. So anyway, the team building, the clarifying the roles, the co-creation, all of that to me is really a wonderful thing that worked fantastically well for us, still is, and that we can take on a grander scale.
Great. Rami?
Yes, I just wanted to say I was extremely lucky to join the leadership of Open Oakland when I did, riding on sort of like the work of Alina, Neil. They set up a lot of great governance things that, you know, that we want to continue on as a leadership and steering committee. And they have pretty much outlined what I was going to talk about, sort of like with the local brigade work. So far, I've been a member of Open Oakland a little over a year. And what has struck me as pretty phenomenal is our relationship with our city. And so it is possible to partner directly with city departments and get buy-in and support. And what I noticed was also working in the civic user testing group, if you show particular results, it's always helpful to get that in front of people, boards and commissions who might also be volunteers and be moved by your volunteer work. So that kind of stuff has been really, really eye-opening. And I'm ready to share that with, you know, say one of the newer brigades like Phoenix, who are in the beginning stages. And we have so much to share with them. And I thank the leadership already of Open Oakland for doing that.
Mm.
Awesome. Brandon?
Yeah, a lot of it probably kind of with collaboration. We worked with a Code for Tulsa on CourtBot, and I'm really jealous of Friendly Competition. They actually launched before us. We haven't quite launched yet, but trying to get different brigades to maybe have a call together, or if brigades have a project that they've all done, provide kind of office hours. And then the other thing is Anchorage is a relatively big city. It's like 300,000, but we make up about 40% of the state population. So I would be interested in brigades that had that kind of ratio of trying to do stuff at the state level, even though it's kind of a big thing to bite off. But I think if your city is a big enough portion of the state, you can make that attempt. And then also I'd reiterate all the great things that everyone else said, but really working with city departments, we've been lucky to start like a bus, text a bus stop and get the time back. And now the city uses that. What we'd like to learn more from other brigades is how do you move that completely into where the city's maintaining it? And basically the full life cycle of creating a project for fun, growing it, testing it, and then having it be a full-fledged city service and having people that can take care of it if anything goes wrong.
Awesome. So we're going to move on to the third question. How do you think the Code for America Brigade program should fit into the larger civic tech ecosystem? And let's go with Elena first.
Okay, great. So I always say our city partners bring the expertise and Open Oakland brings the tech. I believe that brigades are partners with city staff and local residents and allies with these collaborators. There doesn't need to be a single definition that we all follow, but it's more that there's an ideal mission that we all share. I think a great example of this is our civic testing user group that was mentioned earlier, it's a great example of how a brigade project can span across spaces and tie people together under a common mission, and that's to serve residents with digital tools as best as possible, always with diversity and equity and inclusion in mind. Civic User Testing, or CUT Group, has tested our brigade projects. They've tested my projects. They test cities' new digital tools and website. They're all over the place and they're everywhere all the time, and they're just doing this amazing work. And I think it speaks to that there doesn't need to be a hard line for what a brigade is or isn't, but it's a valuable member of the space that's contributing and people flow in and out of it. I think that's a best way to think about it.
Awesome. Brendan.
I think one thing I like about the brigades is having people kind of work on fun projects, and I think it's a safe space to have. I'd like to involve more city employees coming so that they can kind of test things out, and not only that, but get a sense that it's easy to kind of experiment, as opposed to when you're inside city government, there's a lot more things you have. Now that I'm in it, you have to check with legal and risk and all this stuff, but really try to give that sense of fun and help people realize that they can quickly prototype something, they can get useful feedback from volunteers, and really kind of show a proof of concept that they could then show to their boss or show to other people to get additional funding. Yeah, and then also I think the brigades really are valuable as I've been involved in more networks. There's ELGL and Cities of Service, and what works cities is kind of a top-down approach. So you're getting buy-in from the mayor's staff and top level staff in cities, and I really feel like the brigades are a great place for experimentation and are bottom up. So if you can combine those, I think things can borrow from other cities much more quickly and accelerate practices. I'm really excited about all the different networks. Being in the Slack channels and Code for America and just all the friendships I've made, really, I'm excited to see the potential of all the amazing peers in this network and other networks, and I think that it's really going to come to blossom in 2018. Some of the work on Irma and Harvey, seeing how quickly people could adapt stuff, I thought was like a kind of a turning point and a really amazing success for civic tech volunteers.
Hey, Neil, you're next.
Hi. So you said how the brigade program fits into the larger civic tech, right?
Ecosystem, yeah.
Okay, I'm glad I heard that right. So, yeah, and there's some threads of what everybody has already spoken. I mean, I spend a lot of time with folks in different communities, and I think part of what I've found surprising, but also rewarding, is to kind of introduce civic tech, civic engagement to communities that are not really familiar with it. So I'm just thinking about, I just attended a big conference here in Oakland and spoke this afternoon about Open Oakland and Code for America. A bunch of developers, most of them hadn't even heard about Code for America. I was shocked. But so, I mean, what I see is just an opportunity to build community with the maker community, the co-working community, the startup culture. What else am I doing? It's just this big cross-pollination of letting people know we exist and kind of grow, we're talking about stronger together, right? So it's all of that. I certainly have learned how to build community and championing with some of our colleagues, as has been spoken by Rami and Elena in City Hall. That's been super rewarding. So, I just feel like on a grander scale, there's ways for us to continue the work that all of us are doing to reach out to other communities and get our glossary, our language, our mission, our work out, and just cause kind of a ripple and get people educated about what it's all about. Somebody else on a call today or yesterday said, on a forum said, a lot of people, when they find out about what we're doing, actually find it way easier than they thought. So, the mind kind of complicates it, but really it's just a wonderful way of giving back. Those are my thoughts.
Excellent, thank you. So you guys are doing amazing on time. I just want you to point that out to you. Luckily for you, I have some extra questions submitted by Jason. But before I go to those, Janet, I have a feeling you know what questions are coming, but do you guys have any questions you would like to add in? Please put them in the chat. Okay, so while I'm waiting for that to happen, let's do the first one. The first question is, what's one of your favorite projects from another brigade? We'll start with Brendan.
I'm torn. I mean, there's a lot of great projects out there. I liked a Code for Philly had something where they were tracking bicycle commuters early on. And I thought that was really interesting, and they were able to leverage that for planning with the city and getting better bike infrastructure. And I thought it was before Strava and a bunch of other stuff, so it was nice. But there's tons of great projects out there I could go on. So, but I'll let the amazing panel answer it.
Okay. Rami.
Yes.
I totally put a check mark next to your name. I have no idea what I'm doing here. It is 9:30 at night and my brain has turned off.
That's
so
totally okay. Well,
deeply apologize.
No
so I totally
worries.
skipped Rami on number 3.
Yeah.
We're going to rewind for a second and then we'll go back to this one. Rami, how do you think that the Code for America Brigades program should fit into the larger Civitech ecosystem?
So one of the things that I try to think about it in terms of our role as volunteers, as leaders in this volunteer movement too, is I like to think of us as more like facilitators, translators, people who lay down the foundations instead of thinking about us as being the ultimate solution makers. And so Brendan says some really awesome things about, like, you know, doing things for fun, creating safe spaces, but at the same time, can I add a little bit to that idea of saying, can we think of fun and useful projects, right? And so that can be used in a larger civic tech ecosphere. And something else that we did in Open Oakland, or are doing right now actively, is having an understanding with our local government through MOUs so that our work can be useful to them, A, and also B, whether sunsetted through us or, you know, looking at the full life cycle of something that we create. And I think that's really helpful to understand where we are, and we're also actively trying to come up with a mission and vision so we can kind of ground our projects as in that ecosystem. But I think from a larger perspective, sort of like on a high level, you know, I think we have to really ask ourselves, like, how do we think about what a healthy civic life looks like, and then kind of answer from there and kind of work from sort of the center out. And I think what we have to keep in mind, there's an important distinction between like sort of like the solution or change maker paradigm, and like we have to be patently aware of our strengths and our limitations. And while we're walking away from that paradigm, again, you know, this idea of facilitator, translators, you know, we're like stewards of open data and local government. So, you know, but at the same time, knowing our power and understanding that, especially within the brigade network, how are we going to effectively shape this ecosystem instead of having that ecosystem shape us? And so having said all of that, you know, we have to be pretty powerful facilitators as well, not just passive, you know, onlookers. That's
awesome.
it.
Thanks. So sorry about that.
No worries.
This is why they don't let me do things like this very often.
Don't worry, you're doing great.
Yeah. Okay, so Brendan, I love your question and I will answer it as soon as we're done. So back to Jason's additional questions. What is your one favorite project from another brigade? Elena.
Yes, I'm actually going to give you 2. Code for San Jose's Renters' Rights Guide. I love what they're doing. It's set up to help renters understand the laws and programs in place to protect them. I think it's a great response to a problem that our state is having in a big way right now, which is really a housing crisis. And this was a pretty lightweight project that San Jose took on just to bridge that gap for people not knowing how they can proceed if they're having problems with their landlords. And it's such a great example of being able to serve the community locally at hand. The second one is Code for Philly's Unincarcerated. It's a multimedia documentary project on incarceration and reentry, and it was done in partnership with the Reentry Project. I love this project because it's not a traditional project, and it's a collaboration with artists that takes on an area that needs work on a national level, but sort of rethinks at how we can address it as a brigade. And I think both of those are really inspiring projects.
Awesome.
That's it.
Neil.
The ones that I just scribbled down here, I think the one that stands out the most, I think I just had a lot of one-on-one time with some of its birth parents during Philly Congress is CourtBot. So Brendan mentioned it earlier. This is a tool that just makes very easy to understand a lot of things to make the process of resolving citations. I mean, I just got a chance to fall in love with it. A tool that makes a very complicated process simplified I know is the core of what we do, but my choice is CourtBot. So probably most of us in the call know all about it, but it's got little features that have reminders in it and just helps you kind of get yourself organized and reminded when you need to be where and how much it costs to do what. So yeah, I'll hold on on the other ones. So that's my thing.
Okay, Rami?
I've mentioned it at the at-large forum, but my favorite project is the Fire Risk Project, and that's why I know Vincent is not here right now, because I wanted to be at CFA HQ tonight while SF was doing their demo night. The Fire Risk Project was originally hatched out of Code for Atlanta. SF brought it out to the Bay Area, inspired by a very tragic Oakland event, the ghost ship. And the reason, obviously working with a lot of my friends are artists. A lot of my friends could have been at the fire. There are a lot of DIY spaces, art spaces in Oakland that are at risk of being in violation of codes. And, we don't know if these kind of like fires could be something that would affect them directly. But in the meantime, to be able to do predictive analysis based on the data to kind of pinpoint or at least heat map areas that are in dire risk of a fire, that's something I want to bring to Open Oakland, and am working on it. It requires some data scientists, and I'm recruiting from SF because we have to for now, and I'm ready to bring them to our next demo night and hopefully get some volunteers from Open Oakland to get started on that. So I'm super excited about having that on board.
Okay, so the next question is a regional question. Sorry, sometimes I can't read my own writing because I'm in a hurry. Yeah, so is there anything specific to the West region that NAC should address next year? We're gonna go with Rami first.
Yes, definitely. I mentioned sort of like the newer brigades. So Phoenix obviously comes to mind because we talked about that at the Congress. We talked about it, at our at-large forum, and sort of like, I understand as someone newer to the civic tech world what my personal pain points are, but I can imagine what they would be on the brigade level. Code for Guam doesn't exist yet, but they are part of the bigger U.S. civic conversation. And so, that really brings to mind, like, how do we bring something like newer brigades on board, right? How do we act as brigade ambassadors and to get that message out and to get people really interested? And Brendan, Code for Anchorage is really different from, California. I would like to understand like how those differences actually can be bridged, for further collaboration. Also understand, what points Code for Anchorage is going through that I would never understand because I'm in sunny California now. So that is, I think I answered the question.
So Neil, you're next. Neil, you're muted.
I am muted. Sorry, I asked you if you could repeat the question, but you didn't hear me.
Oh, sure. So the question is there anything specific to the West Coast region that the NAC should address next year?
No, I can't think of anything specific. I mean, the same things that I think kind of fall into some of the ideas that we're having for building community nationally, I think apply here. I like that it's kind of a more compact group. I think just onboarding brigades, just to kind of add on to what Remy said, I mean, that's kind of what I'd pursue. I'd really look at areas that require some representation, maybe identify some cities that could use a brigade, and just cross-pollinate, help people get it started, funded, create leadership opportunities, train people about how to be leaders. And yeah, that's what I have to say about West Coast and NAC.
Awesome. And Elena.
Okay. I actually think the West region is so large that nothing necessarily stands out. A lot of the coastal region in California is having housing issues, but that doesn't necessarily speak to the states that are north of us, or Hawaii, although it does actually apply to Hawaii. But I happen to know that. But I think maybe a better effort might be spent better understanding the challenges of other cities and localities, more because I think we're going to find commonalities that we're unaware of right now, and we could collaborate on those. And this also kind of speaks to an endeavor that's happening right now between the brigades where, not to exclude the other states, but sort of a discussion around what might Code for California look like? What can we do with some of the, shared Californian resources that we have and do work that potentially is at a state level, and it has some very exciting potential there. So yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah.
I'm giving you like sparkle fingers for Code for California. Let's see. Okay, so the third follow-up question is kind of a rip off of the last one. Do you have any specific ideas to address the urban versus rural opportunities in the network? And I'm going to go with damn it. Yeah, Brendan, you answered that last one, didn't you?
I can go first. It's okay.
No, Brendan, did you answer the last one? Because I don't remember your answer.
No, I didn't. Sorry.
You didn't. See, I got really excited with like checking that off. That I was like, "Woo!" No,
there's a pattern evolving here.
Yeah. No, I'll reiterate.
Well, there'll be at least 1 point that I will forget each and every one of you. So okay. I guess that's great.
I think Code for California is a great idea. There's really strong brigades there with Open Oakland and SF in LA and Sacramento. And I know Vicky in LA has mentioned that water drought issues are a common thing throughout California. So that could be a very specific Western region thing. I think all cities are dealing with homelessness. I've worked with some Pacific Northwest cities where people are moving between like Tacoma, Bellevue, and Seattle. So you have those corridors, less so for Anchorage. But yeah, then soft stories, some of the earthquake coming out of Open Oakland in terms of figuring out what buildings could be in danger during a big earthquake. I think the regional stuff is great, but I also am excited that as we're evolving, we're developing more themes, like brigades working together on themes together. So, but it's also great to meet people face to face. So the ability for people to go from Oakland to San Francisco or take a road trip to Sacramento really accelerates those relationships. Even though we're all really great at Slack and social media, it's always good to have face-to-face discussions.
Awesome. Okay, so now that you guys have totally forgotten the other question, I'm going to repeat it.
Thank you.
Why wouldn't you have forgotten it by now? Okay, so do you have any specific ideas to address the rural versus urban opportunities in the network? And it's not really versus as if we're going to fight each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's just how do we deal with both urban and rural? Elena.
Yes, I love this question. And what comes to mind to me, first of all, is road trip. I think nothing is more valuable than being able to see somebody in their particular environment, in their space, in their circumstances, and be able to work with them where they're at. We are a little privileged here in the Bay Area. I think we enjoy a number of tech resources that aren't happening in the rest of the state, in the rest of the country, and it would behoove us to get ourselves into a car and make our way into a space that is more rural and start learning from people there about what their experience is and what we can do to help them. I think it's important too to note that like these are localities that might not necessarily have as much digital know-how or funding for such things at the city level, and we can potentially offer some low-hanging fruit solutions to them that maybe they hadn't considered or seen before that could be really inspiring and really bring something positive to the residents there. But we're not going to be able to determine what any of that is until we get there.
Awesome. Brendan.
We just had a hack night last night, and we were talking about working with Fairbanks, which is a smaller city that's about 350 miles away. One challenge for us is, I mean, we have a regular member who drives 120 miles to come into hack night. Is just we have a lot of small villages. Rural could mean a village of like 42 people. And we're really interested how to successfully have remote video or have people participate in hack nights. We haven't seen it always work that great. We're trying to figure out if we could do it in the first 15 minutes where we exchange ideas. When people are working on a project, Slack works pretty well, but the open conference line video, can you hear me now thing, I think there's lots of technology that's made that better, but we're trying to figure out a way to do that. We've just kind of punted on it before, but we'd love to involve more people. And then I think road trips are a great idea, as she mentioned, just going actually and seeing people. We had someone fly from Soldotna, which is about, it was an hour-and-a-half flight. He just came for a hack night and then went back, but he had very unique challenges with the fire department, and it was great to just hear what his, the context of his problems versus the big city of 300,000.
Nice. No, you're next.
Yeah, I had very similar ideas and kind of using technology to connect both urban and rural. The other idea that I had was, you know, kind of back to basics, that we create events and conversations to identify problems, pain points, challenges in each area, and just bring our skills, bring our energy, and just get some clarification around what kind of how can communities, Code for California, Open Oakland, all of us together kind of make a difference and help something that exists. Remember several years ago at Summit, West Sacramento had a fellowship program, and I think they were dealing with something around agriculture, and it just completely blew my mind, just to be able to take this work into an area where, you know, at the time I was pretty new to all of this, I just thought was actually fantastic. So anyway, something that helps us identify the needs of those areas and those communities, and use what we know and how we do things to help create solutions.
Nice. Remy?
So I am a sociologist at heart. That was originally my training. I love doing ethnographies. Not only that, in my campaign statement, I said I would learn how to ride a motorcycle and go on a cross brigade road trip. And I am with you all on, especially now as we are developing NAC, and we're kind of figuring out how to cross collaborate. That human element is so important, and so I can't push that enough. Whether that means people from urban areas going more rural representation coming to urban representation, that physical presence needs to happen. Aside from that, my focus on environmental health as a public health person, I think climate change is something that we can, whether you're rural or urban, can kind of rally around. So it's, around policy, open data, environmental stuff, especially because EPA is going to crap. Sorry, I can say that on a recorded call, right? That's something that I think we could actually, both types of brigades can actually rally around. And again, we know how difficult it is to communicate that kind of science and policy to laypersons. And I think that would be extremely helpful. And, California, if that can be seen as like a microcosm for the Western region, I mean, we absolutely don't. Code for LA, Hack for LA, Open Oakland doesn't, partner with any rural groups. That's something we could definitely look into, not only for us to bring tech solutions to them, but have to understand the problems of rural areas, and have the solutions that they focused on in rural areas and bring it to urban areas, sort of like low fidelity solutions that we could perhaps adapt in urban areas as well. It's not always this sort of like one directional thing. So I'm looking forward to more of that kind of collaboration.
Excellent. Okay, so last question. As a candidate, is there an issue that we didn't ask you about that you would like to address? Neil, you're first.
In tonight's conversation you're referring to?
Either in the form that you filled out for election, or tonight's conversation, or the first one.
So I'm going to go to, one of my other favorite projects, which several of us have talked about over the last few months, is Beta NYC's New York's kind of leadership program. And a lot of what surfaced for me during the first few months of my NAC 2017 activities was this, what I called a listening tour. And a lot of what came out of that, I think we went public with burnout was number one. But also what came up as really important was just kind of management skills, leadership skills, how to build relationships with local government. This leadership, this professional development kind of piece, this professional civic technology professional development is something that has been talked about a little bit, but I just really want to amplify the value of that. I'll leave it at that.
Cool. Remy, do you have anything?
Yes. I kind of wish we were asked, sort of, barring all sorts of like logistics or like logical things, what would the NAC do with $1 million? What kind of programs would you see? What would, because like the thing is like, we can laugh about, let's go on a road trip, but we don't have funding for that right now. We can come up with, answers if we had some sort of like, where's our starting point? Am I in possession of $1 million right now? Because
Oops.
Did Remy freeze, or did you all freeze?
Just really...
No, just her. Okay, we'll let her finish her thought when she comes back. Brendan.
Yeah, I would say I think the NAC has done a great job. I haven't been as tuned in as I should be, but fundraising is something that's kind of overlooked for our brigade. I know people are working on ways to do that. And in regards to that, one challenge I've run into is we're under the Code for America nonprofit 501c3, but a lot of things that we apply for, they want the 501c3 in the state or in the city or have a board in the city. And I know there's creative ways to broach that. I just haven't spent the cycles to do it. I'm also funding, I'd really like to experiment. I've heard of other brigades doing it for hackathons in terms of having childcare at events to bring in, to make it easier for other people to participate. Diversity is always a challenge in terms of just bringing in people with different ideas and from different backgrounds. And then a pipeline for people show up who want to learn how to code, and we only meet every 2 weeks, so we're not quite that device to teach people how to code. We try to onboard them into some projects, but try to form better relationships with the university, and or if we could have some kind of coding boot camps or something like that and plug into there. We have some informal relationships, but I think it would be learning from other brigades and also ideas from Code for America and NAC. I mean, I'd love to see if there were 5 brigades doing a similar project, some kind of large-scale funding that might be available from a corporation, and or breaking up a project into 5 different parts and modules, which is kind of ambitious, but I think we're evolving really quickly. I'm super excited to see what everyone else is doing and what they're going to create.
Awesome. Alina?
Hey, yeah. I'm not sure this was an issue that you guys should have necessarily asked about, but I think there is a real discussion that we could be having around the professional development of our members in a way where brigades can really work as a career building endeavor. So many of our newer members are young, they're new in tech, they've done boot camps, or maybe they've just graduated from university. And one thing that they're often looking for is experience and portfolio building experience. And I think that CFA is doing a lot to bridge that sort of gap between what's happening in the brigades and saying, hey, there's civic opportunities here and you guys are ideal candidates, but maybe there's more that we can be doing. And sort of thinking as one thing a brigade can be is the pipeline to our future city bureaucrats. And we're really planning the ideas of design, design thinking and the mission of CFA in our brigades and like bringing that into cities in a literal way. That's it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to do closing statements, but you're going to have 30 seconds. So 30 seconds for a closing statement. Neil, do you want to go first?
No.
Okay. Okay, Rami? I can see her name. There you are. Oh, there you are. Okay, do you want to do a 30-second closing statement?
Oh, no.
Oh, that freeze frame is the most magnificent thing ever.
Yes.
Okay, Brandon. Brandon, do you want to do a closing statement?
Sure. I'd love to extend on the great work the NAC has done. About 2 years ago, I think there was kind of some tension between the brigades and Code for America, and I think due to the hard work of the NAC and also the willingness of Code for America to bridge that gap and area and all the work that's going on, I think we're in really good shape and things are moving even forward in a better direction. I would be super excited to do this. I also would be super happy for all the other amazing candidates that I've seen to do it as well. So I vote for me or vote for one of these other amazing people.
Excellent. Alina?
Okay, yeah, great. So I'm just really excited by what NAC can get done in this next year. I have some new ideas and I have some big inspirations, and I just want you folks to consider adding some new blood to the NAC this year, and we're going to do a ton of amazing things, and I'm so excited. And I'm just excited about working with the amazing people that are running so far. I think it's like a killer team that can't be beat. So thank you, you guys.
Excellent. Neil, did you have a closing statement?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the process of us coming together for this election has been hugely empowering to many of us and has just built a wonderful community. I certainly would love to continue doing the work that's been done and partnering with other people who would be new to our community.
Excellent. Rami? Are you with us?
Jill, I apologize. Yes.
It's okay.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind actually repeating what you said to the other candidates, because I lost you completely.
It's okay. So it's just a 30-second closing statement.
Okay. I'm super excited as someone who's running for to potentially represent the West region, but as others have reflected in this forum and so many others, like this is amazing energy, and I really feel that either way, whether win or lose, like I think it's still win-win-win, and I'm super excited whether on a local level or on a larger level to participate in any way that I can and bring my fruits and talents to be of use and service to the brigades.
Excellent. So I have a closing statement of my own and to answer Brendan's question. So I want to thank you guys all, not only for just being here tonight, but for raising your hand and stepping up to do this. When we did it a year and a half ago, there was 11 people who ran for 9 seats. And then the next time we had an election, which is now, 31 people raised their hand. So that's amazing. That's way more than, to be honest, any of us actually thought, which is why we're in a little bit of chaos. But it's fantastic. Like, and the caliber of all of you guys is just amazing. So after having spent the last year and a half doing this, it warms my cold, tiny little heart. All of you guys do. So that quick note to answer your question. So obviously hindsight is like amazing, right? So what I wish I knew before, I love CFA and I appreciate their support and all of the work they do. Understanding that they work at the speed somewhere between government and a brigade is important. They're not as fast as a brigade to do anything. And so when you're used to moving civic tech at that speed, you have to kind of remember that it is a larger organization to wield, which is okay, but it just took me a little while to adjust. And then you can't do everything. I think our very first meeting, and Neil can attest to that, when everything we talked about, like, oh, this should be a priority, I raised my hand for everything. Yeah. Because I wanted to be involved in everything because it's all like super important, great work. But you really, truly can't be involved in everything and know your limits because you're going to do better at the things that you can if you know your limits. I think that's probably like a brigade leader thing in general, but it's heightened with NAC. So yeah, I wish somebody had smacked me a year ago when I raised my hand for everything. But so those were to answer your question. So that is actually everything. Thank you guys so much. And we are, oh my goodness, look at this, we're exactly on time. It's like a Christmas miracle, a month late. So I just want to thank you guys all for your time and being here tonight. We're going to record it and put it out as well. And make sure that you have encourage your brigades to vote. Vote, 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 vote. Excellent. Okay. I'm going to go to bed now.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.